Here's my pencil roll that I take out when I'm sketching on the markets, when I'm doing live portraits on the street. So I'll take you through what I keep in there, just as a kind of basic kit, if you like. In here I have this type of pencil, which is a very thin lead pencil. You push and a little bit more pops out the bottom. Now those are good because they never get, they do get a little blunt, but they never get wider than the lead. So you always have a fairly sharp tip. I use this pen for writing people's names and signing bottom of the paper. Here we have an essential first thing, a B pencil. Now, anything harder than a B pencil, H pencils, of which I do have one or two in here that I virtually never touch. H pencils are much harder, so they are only going to give you a light grey line. And with a harder pencil, if you press hard to get more graphite off the end of the pencil and to try and create a dark line, with a hard pencil, you're only ever going to get a grey, and what you also will get is an indentation in the paper and a kind of silvery finish. So that's not something that you really want in a drawing. So generally avoid harder pencils. They're really for writing or for design work to use with rulers, compasses and all that kind of side of things. I do have an HB pencil, and this one allows me to show you how I sharpen them. So this applies to all my pencils. I sharpen them very slowly with the knife to create a long tip. I then sharpen the lead separately afterwards using a repeated motion like this. And keep doing that. You can vary the angle of the blade on the lead to take more lead off the tip. And do it very gently. And you will end up with a lovely long tip to your pencil. And that allows you to sharpen your pencil very quickly, because at times you can just sharpen the lead rather than having to take more of the wood off the pencil. So the longer tip you have on the lead, the better. It means you can stay in the flow of drawing a little bit more, and you also get more, if you wish to have it, you can use the pencil, you can hold it so you can get more of a thick line or a shading line using the side of the pencil. You've got enough graphite on the side to use the side, so you've got a point on the tip. So you can do a really sharp dark line by the tip, and right on its side you've got a much softer, broader line possible. So B, HB now. Let's get into the pencils that I generally use. This is a 5B, and you can see I use it more because it's much shorter. It's been sharpened more. I like 3, 4, 5 and 6B, particularly 3 and 4B. Why do I like these B pencils? Well, the 3B, is that a 3B? Yes, that's a 3B. The 3B tends to be my favourite. It gives a clear line. You can press with it and get a nice kind of dark line going on. It's soft enough to use immensely softly and get a very subtle line. And it doesn't smudge as much. As you go through the B pencils, 3, 4, 5, 6, it actually goes up to about 14, I think. the softer the pencil is, the more it's going to smudge if your hand contacts the paper with lead on it. Now, unless you want those smudges, then use 3 and 4B. That's what I would advise. We will be playing with all the different variations of hardness with pencils in the exercises that we do. But generally speaking, I really like the 3 and 4B. Now here's another one. This is actually a 4B. Now bizarrely, it's a water-soluble one. I don't actually use water when I'm out sketching. I think this one's snuck in, and it's probably in there because I like the way it feels in my hand, the weight of the pencil, and the graphite. Now the graphite, here's another one, a 4B one. This is a Derwent pencil, Derwent sketching pencil. Now if you've done a lot of drawing and used a lot of pencils, you'll notice that the lead in a pencil will vary make to make. Some are much grayer and some are much darker and blacker. Some will, a 3B in one range will be the equivalent of a 5B in another range, and vice versa. So you've got to play around with pencils and find what suits you best. And actually, if you find something that suits you best, then do a lot of drawing, you'll find you'll sharpen it and it'll disappear because you've sharpened it until there's no pencil left. And so unless you get another one pretty quickly, you're going to have to use one of your other pencils. So always good to keep a few pencils in. So they go through to 3, 4, there's a 5B there, another type of 4B there, another type of 5B, and then through to 6, and I've got an 8B there, a couple of 6s and an 8. Really, that's all I need for going out on the spot for doing sketches. Now, I make that point because there is a difference between drawings and sketches. Again, we will go into that in more detail. But when I'm out in markets, I like to do a sketch fairly quickly, 10, 15 minutes maximum. That is because of really it's to do with the comfort of the person sitting there. If you're going to have a portrait of yourself done, on the hoof, as it were, at a market, I think the longest you really want to sit there comfortably is 10 minutes, 15 at an absolute maximum. Otherwise, your face is going to stiffen and your body's going to stiffen, and you're going to be less comfortable sitting there. And for the artist, for me, that stiffness is somehow gets into the drawing. I think there's a fluidity and something good about drawing fast in 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, because you're looking to capture, or I'm looking to capture, a little bit of life, a little bit of character, and a little bit of something about being there, right there at the moment. Remember, it's not a photo, it's a sketch. Again, more of that later. So there you go. There are all the pencils that I use generally for sketching. And that's all I really take with me. Now, beyond that, there are other things. What else have we got in here? Blue tack makes a good squeezable gum rubber. Again, you can, putty rubber, that's the word I'm looking for. You can buy expensive putty rubbers, but why do you need to when blue tack does the job just as well? And blue tack, again, like a rubber, there are ways and techniques you can use putty rubbers and blue tack. There are ways of using it, dabbing and stroking, and just subtle techniques with it. But again, we will talk about that another time. This is the middle of a pencil eraser. It fits in a pencil tube, which seems to have gone missing. but I can't really see the point, because you just end up with a blunt rubber, and why it, so that's why it's loose in there. These things, this is tightly rolled paper into a tube, which is then sharpened, which gives a kind of rough paper edge on it. Now this is basically a smudging tool. Now I don't tend to use these because I sketch more than I draw, but again, this is a very good implement for more technical drawing, more technical approach to artistic drawing. But again, it's a little bit like using your finger for smudging. So it's a smudging tool. Now, other types of lead pencils. Now, what have we got in here? We've got these things, which are like little Conte or graphite sticks, which are square. Now, some people will absolutely love these things. I don't. I find all that really happens is your fingers get covered in lead, which means you get more smudges on your paper. They go blunt just as quickly as a pencil does. And so really, to me, they're not of much use unless you're doing some strange technique where you're using the broad side and doing very, very sort of large, almost like a giant paintbrush strokes with a lead pencil. But it's not a mark I particularly like. Here's a little thing that's quite useful. A nail file. You can sharpen the end of a pencil if you want to sharpen it quickly. You can sharpen it with a nail file. That's quite a useful thing. Now, I just want to take you through another couple of things. Now, here's this is a Daler Rowney pencil. It's a 2B. Now, this is a carbon pencil, so it's got a much thicker lead in it. Now, there's lots of these different types of pencils with their thicker leads, and you can get charcoal pencils, and you can get solid lead pencils. I don't know where mine have gone, and that's because I don't really use them. Now, the trouble is with these thicker lead pencils that have got charcoal in or softer carbon or whatever, you get a lovely kind of dark line. This is, that quick sketch of me is using that type of pencil. So you get a much more sort of charcoal type of line, and you get a much blacker line. But what you get is a much more kind of vague line. They're not very good for detail. They smudge easily, and more annoyingly than that, when you're sharpening them, they just break so easily. Now, there is a way of sharpening these pencils, which I hope you can see here. You actually place the lead on paper and then sharpen like this. And that way the lead is less likely to snap. But it's a faff. So again, unless you're doing that for a specific reason, then it's a faff. They're later on, when we're doing more involved drawings that take much longer time and have more technical aspects to them, that's when using these different pencils and smudging sticks and rubbers and various different types of graphite or charcoal, that all comes into its own when you're doing longer drawings. For me personally, I think when we're sketching at speed, we want to get between a very, very fine line, which a pencil will give, and a broad line. And really, your normal range of pencils will do that. So there's no real need for buying fancy, expensive pencils or full lead pencils. All you do is end up with messy fingers and a smudgy drawing. So that's the basics of the pencils. So if you've got to go out and buy some, I advise you just buy a set of pencils from HB to 6B. It's all you need to get going.